Most of the time I use brow pencils, so I don't really need a specific brow brush, but I also switch to powders once in a while if I want a more diffused, kind of hazy, soft brow look. And I like this brush by BillionDollarBrows. It's much wider and thicker and also square cut, which makes it a bit different from the typical slanted and super flat brow brushes. This gives a much more diffused look. It doesn't give you precision. What it does is, it just gives you some coverage and some shading and some color where you have gaps. These small angled brow brushes just give too much precision. It's like I don't like that hard outline, along the tops and bottoms of your brow. I know it's something that's very popular on Instagram. I just find, when you do that, people don't look at you, they stare at your brows. So I don't want my brows to take over my face. They should just complement my face and not take over. I found the trick to using this and depositing color correctly is not to pick up product and then, rub. Don't do sweeping motions, because that kind of flicks product and powder where you don't want it. For precision and just to fill in gaps where you need it, I will just stamp, stamp, stamp. It looks much better that way. Another tool that you will see me use all the time is just a generic disposable spoolie brush. I buy these in like 100 packs, from places like Lazada, AliExpress, Amazon. You can just buy them in big jumbo packs. They are perfectly reusable. I wash these and use them all the time. The only time I take a new one out is when I lose one, which does happen quite a bit. There's really zero reason to go and spend on an expensive spoolie brush from a makeup brand when it works exactly the same way as any of these disposable ones that are a few cents each. What I do is, after I fill in my brows with powder or with pencil, I will just very lightly brush upwards diagonally with this. And what this does is it diffuses the color slightly, it breaks up any harsh, fake looking lines, and it just makes your brows look real. So this is a step that I never skip. I also sometimes use this after I apply mascara. If there are clumps or little bits that are clumping together, I will hold this at the top and then twirl outward, down and out. And this grips any clumps and removes them, pulls them off your lashes. Now, speaking of disposable tools, I'm also the #1 fan for cotton buds, Q-tips, whatever you call them in your country. These are just perfect for, cleaning up any mistakes, shaping your winged liner. I use it all the time for shaping my winged liner. It takes so much time to draw on a perfect wing. And you can just make the entire process so much easier just by using, something like this to just scrape and clean up your edges, your lines. Everything looks crisp and sharp. I also sometimes use this to rub out lip liner, or sometimes when you apply liquid lipstick, majority of the product ends up on the edges and I don't like that very hard demarcation. So I'll use this to sort of take away the product and make the edges of my lips a little bit more diffused looking. Okay, when it comes to eyeliner brushes, there are two kinds that people use. Some people like to use the flat, angled ones that look like the brow brushes, and they find it easier to control the angle and shape of the eyeliner when they apply it. I personally prefer the pointy brushes because I just find it easier to control. But if you're new to it, I would suggest getting one of each and then testing to see which works better for you, because there's no right or wrong. My favorite eyeliner brush, unfortunately, is this bent one from Shiseido, which is discontinued. I don't know why they discontinued it. I also like the MAC gel eyeliner brush, the 109 and 110. They have a couple of them, and it's just a generic, firm and very fine pointy liner. Brands like Sigma and Zoeva also have bent liner brushes as well, and for a lot of people it might actually make things a little bit easier when it's slightly bent. I love this because the ferrule is slightly thicker. This makes the tip of the brush very much more like a felt tip pen than a brush. And this just makes it so much easier to use and to control, I find. If they ever bring this back, I will throw a party to celebrate. But until then, I'm hanging on to this baby. And I'm so sorry that it's not available for you guys anymore. Now, when it comes to eyeshadow brushes, there are generally 3 shapes that get me through 99% of my looks. I'm holding up 3 from MarcJacobs today, just because they look nice in a set here. These are very generic shapes that you can get from most brush brands. This goes all the way from Hakuhodo price range to Wayne Goss to brands like H&M. In fact, I do have an H&M medium shading brush here, which is sort of about the same as the shadow brush from MarcJacobs. So just take these as a reference for the shapes that I use on a daily basis. The first one is usually something like this, like a shading or crease brush. It's called the crease brush because you typically use it in the hollow of your socket to diffuse color there. That's not typically where you apply the most intense color. It is where you want to blend out the edges of your eyeshadow so you don't get like one hard line on your lid and then nothing. This helps to soften it out so there's a nice gradient from your eyeshadow up to your brow bone. It's just very general but very useful shape to own. But if you're on a budget, you can also do it with a typical sort of like a paddle-shaped shadow brush like this one. What these brushes are good for are for packing on eyeshadow. So, the main lid shades, I will typically apply with something like this. I'm not sure how visible it is on camera, but the H&M medium shading brush is a little bit thicker on the side than the MarcJacobs, which is a bit flatter. So if you want a general purpose brush and you're on a budget and you don't want to own, both a crease brush and a packing brush, get a fatter shading brush like the H&M. So if I'm pressed for time, I will use the edges, the tips, as a blending brush when I want to diffuse color, and then when I want to pack on concentrated color on the lid, I will use the flat side of the brush to press it on and pack it on. This is why I have so many expensive brushes, but this H&M brush is the one that I seem to reach for the most because it's convenient and I'm lazy. Now, for a small smudge brush like this, you can see it is like a mini version of the regular shadow brush. What I use this for is for detail work. So if I want to darken my eyelashes with a dark shade, or I want to deepen the outer corners of my eyes with a little bit of shading so that give some dimension and some shape to your eyes, I will usually use a small smudge brush like this. And again, you can get this sort of a shape, small smudge brush, for most companies. So you can use it along the tips as an eyeliner brush, and you can use it on the flat side if you want to do slightly more precise blending and packing. If you are just starting out and you're not doing, too much detail work around your eyes, you may be able to skip this for a while and just use shapes like these. Now, if you're very OCD about tiny details and you want to get every detail exactly right, there are even tinier versions of the smudge brush. This one is the number 14 from Chanel. It's the eye contour brush. And if I put it beside the MarcJacobs, you can see just how much tinier it is. This is almost like a tiny little eraser point. This makes it perfect for just going along the lashes. The issue with something like this is you kind of need to keep going back into your eyeshadow to pick up product because this amount of bristles is not going to hold a lot of shadow. Now, this sort of a small smudge brush actually can be used for both powder and cream products. Besides applying eyeshadow along your lash line and keeping it very precise, you can also use it to smudge out pencil liners, gel liners. You can even use it to apply spot concealer, where you need it, because it's just so small and so firm that it makes it extremely easy to control where exactly the concealer goes. Now, very often when I'm doing swatches or I'm switching between a lot of colors and using just one brush, you will see me use this strange little thing. It's sort of called a color switch sponge. I got this off AliExpress as well for like a few bucks. Less than $5, definitely. What it is it's a very generic sort of synthetic scrub sponge material, but it's much more porous than the usual sponges that you use. I wouldn't suggest using a generic kitchen sponge to clean off your brushes. It's just not the right texture. This has a slightly wiry, loose grain consistency. So in between eye colors, you don't have time to wash your brushes and you don't want to carry a whole bunch with you if you're traveling. You just bring this, you just swipe, and it takes most of the color off, and you can move on to the second shade, third shade, and all that. It's extremely convenient, and it's cheap. Every 1 or 2 weeks, I'll just wash it out with detergent and water, let it air dry for 1 or 2 days, and you're good to go again. Now for lashes, there are 2 tools that I use interchangeably. One you see all the time, and that's my ShuUemura eyelash curler. I have 2 of these. One is the generic classic silver one, and this one is a special gold Super Mario Brothers one, which was released last year for the holiday collection. My advice is wait for the holiday collections and buy the limited edition ones because they're so much cuter to look at. The other tool that I use is heated eyelash curler. Some of you might have seen this on Instagram stories a few times. You know, the issue with this is they're battery operated. I get lazy or I forget to switch them out, and then they stop working, and I just end up going back to manual curlers. If you have very stubborn, very straight lashes that refuse to hold a curl, this works so much better than these. The trick is you're not supposed to apply this directly onto your lashes before mascara. It doesn't work the way you would use a manual curler. For the maximum hold, maximum curl, maximum hold, you use manual curlers first, apply your mascara, let it dry, and then you press and lift your lashes with this. So you hold these sections up for a few seconds at a time. What this does is the heat softens your mascara, but then once you take it away, the cool air almost sort of freezes your mascara back into place and hardens it. That changes the formula, and your mascara gets a lot stiffer and it holds the curl a lot better. It almost changes your mascara formula in a sense. I recommended this to so many people over the years, and usually it's people with the most stubborn, stick straight lashes that refuse to hold the curl, and you end up with mascara smudges, you know, after 4 or 5 hours. It's worked for every one of them so far. As long as you use it right. Do not use this to curl your lashes directly. Use it after mascara as a way to almost permanently set your mascara wax. Now one last thing, which I should have mentioned earlier but I didn't because I love it but I don't use it extremely often, is the Makeup Forever 124 Kabuki brush. This is like the most plush and dense and velvety face brush. Now Makeup Forever has a very good cruelty-free synthetic brush range. They've managed to mimic the wave and curl of natural hair bristles so that their face brushes are really airy and very soft. And this is one of those that is a mixture of straight and wavy bristles. I use this exclusively when I want to press on powder foundation. I didn't include this in my original powder lineup because I don't wear powder foundations very often. I have dry skin and I prefer a non-matte look. But on the occasions when I want that very perfect, very matte face, this brush wins out over anything else that I own. Now, my tip for using this is not to swirl and then buff the way that we've been taught to with minimal powder foundations in the past. You just press it into your powder a few times, it picks up plenty of product, and then you press it onto your face. And you will see the coverage just go on. It looks like you were airbrushing your skin. One last thing. A lot of you always ask me what I use to clean my brushes, and my favorite thing is Dr. Bronner's Unscented baby soap. So this is extremely concentrated. I mix about 1 part soap to 2 parts water and put it in a pump bottle. That's great for pumping directly onto your brushes without having to pre-wet them first. If you know how often I wash my brushes, you'd be surprised at how good a condition they are in, because I just use a soap that doesn't strip. And that's really it for my list. I hope you guys enjoyed it and found it useful. Don't forget to leave me any requests in the comment section below, and I will see you in the next video.